Hello students, welcome to another class of Shrishti ma'am. So today we are taking up a new poem. The title of the poem is Childhood. It's written by Markus Natten. Today I present you the explanation of the poem. So let us start with our poem. In the poem, we find that the poet, the speaker of the poem, he is on a quest, a search journey. As we all know, that childhood is a golden period of everybody's life. But at one point of time, we have to lose it without knowing when or where we lose it. Markus Natten, this Norwegian poet, questions the same in this poem which has been entitled Childhood. And from his analysis, the poet discovers that a gradual process of self-discovery actually initiates or starts the loss of childhood, the loss of innocence, the purity of human life. We all know that childhood is the purest stage where a human being, we are ignorant of sin. We don't know what is right or wrong. We don't know how to discriminate between good and evil. So, till we are children, we remain in perfect ignorance about the outside world. So, that very day that we start to realize that our world is completely different from what we have perceived till date, that very day we lose our innocence. But the speaker here, the poet, in a very confused state, he starts finding out, putting an end to his questions as to when and where he had lost his childhood, and if it was actually possible to regain, to rediscover that lost childhood, the stage of innocence. So let us start with the first stanza of the poem. When did my childhood go? So the poet begins with a question and he's asking when his childhood had gone. Was it the day I ceased to be 11? Was it the time I realized that hell and heaven could not be found in geography and therefore could not be? Was that the day? So he is questioning when he had lost his childhood. He is doubtful whether it was the day when he ceased to be 11. He is no more 11. That means he has entered 12. The day he entered 12, perhaps it was the day that he had dropped his innocence and he had started a new journey towards maturity. He feels that very day when he could figure out the difference between reality and imagination, that lay to the end of his childhood. He could understand the fictional existence of heaven and hell, as well as the rationality or the reality in geography books. Perhaps It was that day when he started understanding that there was no such place as hell or heaven. These are simply imaginary things. These are only stories which were told to us by our elders. Geography books doesn't say anything about the existence of such places. It is true that we read fables, we read stories, we heard elder people telling us, fables and stories and, giving us moral lessons regarding the existence of a heaven where God rule and hell where the devil or the Satan rule. But then, in reality, we don't actually have something called heaven or something called hell. These are simply imaginary places. So, once we stop being 11, once we are introduced to books like or subjects like geography, now you must be understanding that geography is a book that relies on facts, okay, pure facts. It relies on reality, evidence. So, if geography book, which is a factual evidence, doesn't refer to any place called hell or heaven, if the maps and the books doesn't have a proper picture or a proper diagram, a proper map of these places called heaven and hell, that means these two places do not actually exist. So as we grow up, we get new knowledge through new subjects and we learn how to differentiate between the real and the imaginary. Okay, so this is what the author is saying, that his acquisition, his earning, his that realization, his rational thinking, it is probably the first step towards losing innocence and gaining maturity. Now we no longer trust on our elders. We no longer trust in those imaginary fairy tales. Now we know what is right or what is wrong. We are now more rational. Once we stop being 11, once we enter our teens, we start getting real, we start being rational. So thus we stop being children anymore and we become more mature. So this is perhaps he is only assuming that perhaps this phase is the start of loss of childhood and gaining of maturity.